He's going to be the student moderator. John is a sophomore at Spencer.
Rita Lopez.
Thank you for joining us, Ms. Lopez. If you can place your phone on mute for me. For the speakers, the way this system will work is I've sent to you via text or messenger the order of the speakers. In most cases, we kind of stay around the right time. In some cases, the conversation just gets so good and the questions just become so intense that we may be about 5 minutes off, maybe 10 minutes off. But students have asked some really deep questions in some cases, and some were very specific. We try to make sure we stay away from anything involving profanity, anything that would cause, gender biases or someone to feel uncomfortable. Anything about race that will make someone else feel uncomfortable, because we do have a diverse group at the school. I will open up. That'll be the only time you'll hear my voice. After I open up, the first presenter, which is Daniel, will present. After his presentation, John, who's going to be the student moderator, will then ask questions on behalf of the student body. The students will all send their comments to a platform called Remind, and John will read from those questions to represent the student body, so that way it's only one or two people speaking at the same time. If you're not speaking, I'd like to ask everyone to go ahead and place your cell phones on mute. And what I do for the calls is I normally place it on speakerphone, and that way when it's my turn to speak, I then take it off of speaker, take it off of mute, and then do the presentation portion. Sometimes we do have questions that extend past the virtual think tank hour, and so you may get a text message from me or from Mr. Henson, who's a teacher moderator that's here as well, with additional questions or students who may want additional information. So with that being said, if you can go ahead and place your cell phones on mute. The time now is 12 noon here for us, and at this time I'd like to say good morning and to all of the students at Spencer High School. Thank you so much for joining us today. Moving towards our presentation for today for our virtual think tank, I want to say thank you to our students and also to our presenters for being with us today. I'm reminded of a quote from Dr. King over 50 years ago that he said, "Even in a mountain of despair, we have to be able to find a stone of hope." And you are that stone of hope for our students for today. Some of our students are navigating becoming doctors, lawyers, attorneys, going into the military without a blueprint because they're the first in their generation to do it. They're trendsetters in their family. And so you're providing a blueprint for our students, since we cannot have career day or opportunities for them to hear speakers or to visit different college campuses. So I want to say thank you for being that blueprint to our students. One of the things I was reading in a book called A Rage of Hope, From Rage to Hope by Dr. Crystal Kirkendall, she reminded me of myself when she said perhaps that, I thought I was fortunate that I didn't find out until I got to college that I was something called culturally deprived, economically disadvantaged, at risk, or underprivileged. They coined a lot of different phrases to describe your dysfunctionality in your family. I was like so many black and Hispanic youth in our schools today, while others may refer to, your childhood as being horrid, few will understand how truly happy I was in my childhood because of the love, the support, the resources that I had in people. And that's one thing we cannot do, is replace a student's motivation with a program. For me, it starts with the people. It starts with the teachers. It starts with the mentors. It starts with the families, the uncles that are involved in the lives of the kids, because that's truly what helps with motivation. It's not the money. It's not the programs. It's not, although programs do work, but at its very core, our teachers and mentors need to really play a key role, especially in the midst of COVID-19, where we are socially distant. We still need to make sure that we have some type of contact with our kids to make sure that they have the support and the motivation they need to move forward. So with that being said, I want to say thank you again to our presenters for today. Thank you so much for joining us at our virtual think tank. I'm going to go ahead and turn the mic over to our very first presenter, Mr. Daniel Jones with the United States military. I'd like to say thank you and welcome to our virtual think tank. Mr. Jones.
Yes. Okay. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
wish you guys the most success ever. I am fifth generation Army. Fifth generation Army. I got a lot of military people in my family. I was born into drug addiction amongst all my grown-ups. So I had no grown-ups as a child. So as a child and the oldest grandchild, when I became school age, it became my job to make sure that all of my cousins that were around my grandmother's house were engaged in everything they had to be engaged in as a child. Because of my disposition, I chose to do all successful things. Yes, I still struggled because I was trying to be socially acceptable. So I ended up doing street things. I ended up doing street violence type things, Grand Theft Auto, things of that nature. By the grace of God, I graduated high school with a scholarship to Howard University. Totally unexpected. I was in the marching band. Because of my ability to play, I got an opportunity, and I took it. I believe that my mentality was to not let my current situation or the sins of my parents and those above me be my reality. And that's been my thought process. So my second goal was to rebuild my family, starting with children of my own. So I'm a father of 7, 6 boys, 1 girl. I joined the military in '97. Started out rough because, again, as a young black man who didn't really have nobody to advise me, I used street law as my law in the military. So I didn't progress as fast as others. But through mentorship with other higher ranking personnel, I've been able to do 18 years total in the military. I've deployed 3 times, and I'm currently back in school to try to finish college because as a hardhead, I had a rough time managing. But all of this is to say that you guys can do anything that you put your mind to. There's no goal too high. Again, I wasn't the most straight A student. I didn't have the best study habits, but these are the things that I try to instill into my children because I lived what many of you guys might be going through in your own personal lives. You can think of the most horrible situations. I promise you, 9 times out of 10, I've lived it. Through child abuse, being an abused child, through being around all the worst drugs. But again, 18 years military, I am my own success story in my mind, and I'm striving for greater things. And that's the quick and sweet on me. Any questions you may have, I'm glad to answer at this moment.
Okay, good morning, sir.
Good morning.
How are you doing today?
Oh, I'm awesome. How you guys doing?
I'm great. My name is John Fisade George. I'm a sophomore at William Henry Special High School. I'm going to be your moderator today. I'm a proud Nigerian, native of Nigeria, and I have the pleasure of serving you as a student moderator today. So thank you for sharing your story today with us. So my first question will be, how did you handle on daily going to school with drug abuse at home?
Well, I try to detach myself. So in situations like this, I think we have to wear many masks, or we try to fit in. So when I was around my parents, my goal was to make sure that none of us children fall into drug addiction. So a child myself trying to do adult talking to my cousins and things, it worked for some, and for others it did not. But I guess a lot of prayer, bro. think I talk to God maybe 20 to 30 times a day, and just staying focused on the only way that I could affect change is by making sure that I'm on a platform higher than those that I'm trying to represent.
Thank you, sir. My next question would be, what advice would you give to those wanting to serve in the military?
The military is a great thing. I would say, one, you need to think about what is your reason. Two, connect your reason with your type of job that you pick. And three, don't limit yourself. Don't be a one-show horse. I've earned 4 different MOSs in the military, and not because I went to school first with each one. When you go to school, you go to AIT for your original one. I came in as a cook. As a cook, once my duty day was over, I tried to cross-train in the other areas, which earned me the other 3 MOSs by me learning so much information. And such is the same in life. Once you get your job, if you're in robotic engineering, okay, find the chemical aspect of robotic engineering and learn that too. And then learn the micro engineering or microbiology or any other fields that's revolved around that area. And you'll be successful in the military and life or anything as long as you keep learning. It's a continuous learning curve. And don't be scared about war, because as you can see, we're technically at war right now with something that we can't even see.
Okay, thank you, sir. My next question would be, who was your role model, and what are some things they share with you to help you become successful?
Okay, so all of my role models, I didn't have until I joined the military. So I guess for a lack of available sources, my idea of a role model was to be the opposite of those that were my adult supervision. If that makes sense, I don't know. I didn't have nobody positive. I only had negative representatives. So I had to decide, do I want to be exactly like this guy, or do I want to be better? And will me being like this person be counterproductive to success?
Okay, my next question would be, if there was anything you could change about your past, would you change it?
No, I wouldn't change nothing about my past, because one rule of thumb, if you never been through anything, no struggle or anything, then you're probably truly not ready for life. So all my struggles prepared me for what life has, because life don't always shoot you straight. Life will shoot you a curveball. You have to have the intestinal fortitude to be able to push through and still strive for that positive and not settle for whatever is handed out.
That's good. Okay, so what city do you currently live, and how has COVID-19 impacted your job and your family, sir?
So I live in Washington, D.C. The city is on a total lockdown like most other places. It's giving us bonding time. So yes, we're in the middle of a crisis, but I think this is a form of spiritual warfare, for a lack of better terms. Not to try to impede on anyone else's religious beliefs, but in order for whoever your religion is revolved around to get through to you, sometimes life has to be slowed down for you. So all these moments at home with our families give us the opportunity to reestablish the groundwork of what really creates a successful person, which is family, good conversation, better ways for us to see what our kids are actually doing on social media and things of that nature, so we can better cultivate stronger group of young men and women who will take over the forward movement of life.
Thank you so much, sir. You have a great story. Thank you for being transparent and not afraid to share your truth. We hear you. At this time, I would like to pass the mic to our next presenter, Mr. Daryl DJ Jones. Welcome to our virtual think tank.
Good afternoon, and I'd like to thank Mrs. Patterson for this opportunity to speak to everyone on this virtual think tank. My story is, I like to say, is the story of an American dream. Having an opportunity to grow up here in Columbus, Georgia, from the hood primarily. But to ever think that I would be able to go off and play on a national championship college football team at the University of Georgia, to be drafted in 2 major league sports, drafted after high school by the Pittsburgh Pirates in baseball, and then after my career at the University of Georgia playing football, having the opportunity to be drafted by the Green Bay Packers, and just a wonderful experience of what sports has meant to me in my life on and off the field. But none of that would have been possible without my parents. You know, they were my heroes, and that way, they were my mentors, and primarily, even though my coaches and my teachers and my Sunday school teachers and that kind of thing. But it started at the house. And for those of you out there familiar with Columbus, I'm from a place called University Estates. That's where I grew up as a young kid in the hood. And when I wasn't there, I was at East Winton, my grandmother's house on 9th Street. And again, these were at that time and during the 70s, these neighborhoods were primarily black, and a lot of crime and a lot of drugs and a lot of things that were negative and that were crucial to having the willpower to want to dream, to be better, to make it out of the hood. But again, like I said, the great foundation that my parents bestowed upon me by obviously making me go to church and giving me opportunities to earn my keep, and by having chores, making up my bed, having good grades. I did what I had to do what I wanted to do, and playing sports was what I wanted to do as a youngster. Football, baseball, basketball, television was the thing. We watched it, and we didn't have a lot of the things that you have now, which in terms of video games, however. But what we watched on television, if we saw one of our favorite teams and one of our favorite players in multiple sports, we'd go out in the yard and emulate and do that. And that's what we did. We went outside, we stayed outside, we played football, we played basketball, we played baseball, we even played golf. We dug holes and put a little binder sauce down in the hole and used the golf balls. And sometimes we didn't have a golf club, but we used sticks. But basically, just making do with what we had. But more importantly, as I reflect back on those days and my parents and their leadership in my household, with first and foremost, Jesus Christ at the head of our house and our home, and being God-fearing parents, I had to make some decisions. And again, my friends, being in the hood, a lot of them were, they did drugs, they stole, they got in trouble, they did a lot of different things. But I knew I wanted to be bigger than that, because I wanted to make my mom and dad proud. I wanted to be somebody. And you have to make a decision, a conscious decision, if you're going to follow the crowd or if you're going to, go after your dreams. And had a lot of positive people in my life that made me realize that I didn't have to settle. And with that said, having an opportunity to play sports, and I was pretty talented as a youngster, playing Little League ball, whether it was Pop Warner football or Little League baseball or at the YMCA, I excelled. I was talented. I had some good tutelage. I had some good coaching, and that talent led to some opportunities that, as I mentioned before. But coming out of Carver High School in 1980, after winning the Ledger Enquirer Bi-City Male Athlete of the Year, because I made all Bi-City in football, baseball, basketball, and ran track. Being drafted by Pittsburgh Pirates, as I mentioned, because in baseball they draft you. They have a June amateur draft, and you're draft eligible as a graduating senior. But I did not want to play professional baseball. Football was my thing. I was aggressive. It was the energy thing with me. But excelled as an All-American quarterback. Was recruited by SEC all the SEC teams, all the ACC teams. I could have gone pretty much anywhere in America. But I chose the University of Georgia, and boy, I chose it at the right time. In 1980 was my freshman year. Had the opportunity to play on the national championship team at the University of Georgia with a guy by the name of Herschel Walker. And not only did we play on the national championship team, we won 3 other SEC championships. And from there, but I played in 3 consecutive Sugar Bowls, and I played in the Cotton Bowl my senior year in college, and also played in the Senior Bowl All-Star game. And again, was drafted by the Green Bay Packers, went on to play several years with the Packers, played with the Broncos, so to the tune of having an opportunity to win a 1987 AFC championship. So football has been very, very good to me. It basically changed my life, and for you folks that are familiar with the draft, the NFL draft just the other day, lives were changed and dreams came true. And one of your old homeboys from right here in Columbus, Georgia, had that opportunity many, many years ago, and that was that part of it. But then again, there's another part of life that if you don't take advantage of your education, if you don't take your schooling serious, if you don't learn how to read and write, you don't learn how to comprehend, if you don't know how to learn to network, obviously being a football player is nothing. Because again, there's life after football. Everybody doesn't make multi-million-dollar, So I was one of those guys that played 4 or 5 years, and at 28 years old, I had to get a job because, again, back in the 80s, the money was nowhere near what it is today with regards to the multi-million-dollar and the generational wealth that these guys can play 2 or 3 years and retire, and they won't have to ever do anything else. But I had to get a job. Had I not gotten my education, had my parents not made me understand the importance of getting an education and also making me realize that I could not play, or that they would not let me play sports unless I got my grades, and that was the most important thing ever as far as I was concerned. But got a job, had a lot of opportunities, wonderful opportunities, great job. First job I had was in medical sales with Johnson & Johnson. I sold surgical instrumentation. I called on hospitals from Atlanta to South Georgia. No medical background whatsoever, but the training that these companies have for you now, they looking for. If you have the image that they're looking for, they can make it fit. Went on to another job because I was an athletic guy. I was a sports guy. Mizuno was a national or international sporting goods manufacturer. The national promotions manager with Mizuno. And my job was to travel around the country and service my top-level collegiate programs as well as any professional athlete that wore our product to the tune of Major League Baseball players, NFL players, track and field athletes. I serviced them. I was the guy that negotiated with these young men and women. So, again, having an education, being able to transition from just being not just a job, but having the wherewithal to know that, you take your education serious, and again, you network and people that you meet in life, you never know who they are. But I'm going to end it all with this right here because right now as the owner, 16 years running as the owner of Sports Visions USA LLC here in Columbus, Georgia, which is a multimedia sports marketing agency. We have a television show called Sports Visions, the TV show, radio show, and a magazine. How are we doing with time? Good? Yes, sir. Okay. But being able to change lives right here in our community, my partner and I, Dale Williams, we both went off and did some wonderful things. But to come back to our community and service and have an opportunity to produce and honor and celebrate our high school athletes and coaches, that's more to me than and again, I have a national championship ring from college. I have an AFC championship ring from the pros. I got 3 SEC championship rings from Georgia. But starting our business and coming back and helping and supporting our young student athletes and coaches in this community because somebody did it for us. And, growing up and dreaming to have an opportunity to have a platform like this is really special. And again, the common denominator to all was being kind, treating people like you want to be treated, being respectful. I was a star athlete, but I wasn't a guy that was going to go around trying to, be arrogant and not being humble, not, treating people like I wanted to be treated because that's what I learned at home. And with that said, I think I can open it up to some questions.
Okay, thank you, sir. Good morning, sir. How are you doing this morning, sir?
I'm doing wonderful. How are you?
I'm great. Okay, to begin with the questions, what advice would you give to like various students who are listening in right now, who are in your kind of background, why they're young right now with everything going on? What would you give them as advice with their athletic abilities having gone on for them?
Well, first and foremost, obviously, everybody, if you're serious about playing sports and taking it to the next level, you have to be serious about your grades, because there's nowhere in the world you're going to play college sports if you don't have the academic requirements, test scores, and things of that nature. So, being good is one thing, but being honest with yourself. You can't just do it on the field and then figure that you got to. Matter of fact, you got to take the academics, especially today, more so than at the actual sport. And that's what I would strive, and I would really want to talk to the parents, because there's certain requirements to get in school, that you have. And you don't need it. You're going in as a freshman or a sophomore, and if you're not on par with that counselor and knowing and understanding what requirements you need, how many credits, and what kind of classes you're supposed to take so that you can graduate on time and have the requirements needed, you can be the most talented athlete in the world, but if you don't get those academic requirements, it's all for naught.
Thank you, sir. My next question would be, how often do you pay it forward so that others can hear what you've been through?
Can you repeat that question?
I said, how often do you pay it forward so that others can hear what you've been through?
Every single day. Again, having a radio show that's here in Columbus on WRCT 92.1. We're on Mondays and Thursdays from 4 to 6 o'clock live. And we have a television show that we do on CTV Beam and also on YouTube television. That's on also Thursday, Fridays, and Saturdays. And we have a publication that comes out, a sports magazine that comes out once a quarter. And we do events. We honor the top high school football players in East Alabama and West Central Georgia during the month of December. In April, we have a Female Athlete of the Year awards luncheon, where we honor the top female athletes, over 50 of the top female athletes in East Alabama and West Central Georgia. We have a speaking engagement that we go into the schools, we go into the churches, my partner and I. So paying forward, again, to answer your question, I think what we do, our job is paying forward, because again, we have the light, the bright lights are on us, and but we were always, again, giving the credit and making sure that we are honoring our coaches and our young student athletes.
Thank you, sir. Oh, yeah, Ms. Patterson shared with us that you helped to pay for tickets for 200 of us to attend basketball championship game in Augusta, Georgia. We thank you so much for being selfless and supportive towards us. What inspires you to be true and give back to the youth, sir?
Well, obviously, like I said, somebody had done it for us, and Spencer. I graduated from Carver High School, and again, my thing now in sports, I cover all the schools, the local, regional, and national perspective. But the local schools, Carver is where, and everybody knows that's my school. But at the same time, all of you at all the high schools here in the Chattahoochee Valley, I love you, and I'm here for you, and I serve you. So that part of it, by buying the tickets, obviously, because I know that you're going on the road and you're playing against a team that are playing in their home gym. So why not load up a couple of buses, man, and take some home folks down and some students, and to give us an equal opportunity to come back with a win.
Thank you so much, sir. For my next question, you have the experience to be coached by different great coaches in the league. Which coach left the greatest impact, sir?
That's a good question, a great question, in fact. But, it'd be easy for me to say the coaches that, coached at, on the professional and the collegiate level. Vince Dooley at Georgia, one of the greatest college football coaches in the history of not just Georgia and NCAA football. Dan Reeves was a coach when I played with the Broncos, and, of course, Forrest Gregg was my coach when I played with the Green Bay Packers. But I want to go back. I bring it back to the house, to the hood, because I had some great coaches that obviously have they didn't get me on the right track, and they didn't establish a great foundation for me to understand not only mentally and physically of how to be the best that I could be, it never would have happened. Tommy Drew was one of those coaches that was in my Pop Warner coach. He had an outstanding program at Edgewood with the baseball, with the football program. Wallace Davis was one of my high school coach, one of my best friends. He instilled a lot of great things into me to understand that, if I wanted to be great, if I wanted to do something special, I just couldn't, I had to let everything else go and focus on what was important. Those two guys, and I know that there's some more. George Williams was a basketball coach, but had a lot of great coaches that I played under here in Columbus, Georgia, before I even went off to the pros in college. So I want to give credence to those guys, and those that was, I think, most important because, the foundation, obviously, if you learn how to do it the right way the first time, that makes it a whole lot easier.
Thank you so much, sir. My next question would be, what does it take to own your own business, and where can you find Sports Vision online?
Well, sportsvisionsusa.com. Sports is plural, Visions is plural, USA.com. That's our website, and of course, you can Google the Sports Visions TV show on CTV Beam that comes on weekly. We have a sports app that you can catch. We go live. Actually, the radio show that we do live on Mondays and Thursdays from 4 to 6 o'clock on WRCT 92.1 FM. That's live. But we have also a Sports Visions radio app that's absolutely free. Go to your app store, punch in Sports Visions Radio, and the app should pop up. With that said, you'll have a live streaming the radio program because we come on Mondays and Thursdays. But if you go to the podcast within that app, and that'll bring up all of the past shows and current shows that we've done, and you can listen in.
Thank you, sir. What was your daily NFL schedule like?
Say that again?
What was your daily NFL schedule like?
Oh, okay. Well, good question, because obviously you don't get the chance to be behind the scenes. But, one thing about the National Football League, it's a business. As much as you think it's a game, but it's a business. You're getting paid. If you don't do your job, and sometimes, that's not doing your job is not good enough. But basically, you just want to make sure that you have a time management because you have some free time, But you go in the mornings for meetings. Of course, you have lunch, and of course, a lot of film study. You're going over your opponents on basically Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday. Game times on Sunday. The off days are Tuesdays. But, of course, it's Sunday after the game. And Mondays, you have to go in for injuries if you have any injuries. But for the most part, it's just film study. You're going in the classroom. You're going on the field. You're doing things in a timely fashion during the course of the week. And, again, you're building up until Sunday. Sunday is the day that's game day. You travel normally if you're going on the road, you travel on the Saturday before the game, and then, of course, you leave going back home right after the game.
Thank you, sir. This is my last question. As you know, COVID-19 shut down the schools for the rest of the year. What advice would you give to the class of 2020?
Well, it's unfortunate, but at the same time, I like to pull silver linings out of every crisis or every negative situation, and I know that me personally, having the opportunity to stay at home, I'm a primary caregiver for my mom, so it really means a lot to me to make sure that she's taken care of. But for the families and the kids out there that of course, I know you guys have been devastated with all of the activities and the events that have been canceled for you. But at the same time, this is part of life, and one thing about it, you got to stay positive. This too shall pass. It'll end. Yes, you missed some very, very important things that you wanted to do, wanted to accomplish with regards to walking across the stage and going to the prom and so on and so forth. But at the same time, life will you'll find out later on that, you have situations that this is an adverse situation. But those of you who can deal with it, who can, who can reap some positive out of this, this will make you better. It might sound crazy now, but again, when you're talking about going through tough times and being in a situation where your light bill's due, you got, your car broke down, or your mortgage is due, and you don't have enough money in the bank. These are things that, it teaches you. It's when people say you don't have enough experience. Well, you haven't experienced, a lot of those situations yet. But this experience, obviously, especially if you take it and make the best of it, this will help you later in life when you're dealing with, as a father, as a mother, as a husband, as a wife, as a coach, as a lawyer, doctor, whatever you might choose to be in your adulthood and in your career. It'll teach you how to go through and deal with adversities.
Thank you, Mr. DJ Jones. Thank you for talking the talk and walking the walk. We wish we had more people in the community that didn't mind giving back, especially schools on the South Side. Thank you for joining us today on our virtual think tank. At this time, I'd like to pass the mic to the next speaker, Attorney Teddy Reese.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you so much for moderating this discussion today. You're doing such a phenomenal job. I also want to thank Ms. Patterson, Mr. Henson, and the other phenomenal leadership at Spencer High School for all that you guys are doing to shape our next generation of leaders. It's imperative that we continue to wrap our hands around our students, especially at this critical time, to let them know that we love them, that tomorrow is still coming, and that they can continue to do great things. I also just want to say to everyone on the line, please continue to be safe, to practice social distancing. The virus is still in our atmosphere, and some medical experts around the world are still very concerned about what could happen. So, granted, you may see different leaders beginning to open areas up and open up businesses and things of that nature. No one can take care of you like you. So you have to make those smart decisions to do what's going to be best for you and your family. A little bit about myself. I'm from a very small town called Gordon, Georgia, which is in Wilkinson County and rural middle Georgia, one of the smallest counties in the state. My city had a population of about 2,500 people. Everything closed down at 10 o'clock. My grandmother, she had a chicken coop from the entire time I was growing up. I remember as a child chasing chickens and just farming the land and doing what we had to do to survive. I was primarily raised by my mother, by a single parent. My grandmother, she only finished the 10th grade. My mom, she was able to finish high school. And from there, I had many people in my life that would talk to me about opportunities and going on to do great things in life to make myself successful. And so one of those conversations came from my football coach, in which he talked to me about going to college. And from that conversation, I ended up at Albany State University. My plan was to major in biology and become a doctor. However, the first biology class myself did not get along. And after I got that first D, my mom and I had to have a very serious conversation. So she talked to me about, well, what do you like to do? And I seriously love video games. And she was like, well, what about computer programming? So I looked at computer science, and I love the programming aspect of computer science, C++, COBOL, Pascal, the things that allow you to create the video games and other computer-based programming. And so I majored in computer science with a emphasis in business. And with that, I learned a lot of business courses and things of that nature as well. While there, I served as a 2-term SGA president at Albany State University, and I also pledged Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. I'm the Student Government Association president as the student body president for the college. When I left there, I had a great opportunity with Geico Corporate, the regional office in Macon, Georgia, and where they hired 40 college graduates around the nation, and I was one of them, and I was placed at the Macon office. And there, I was able to go into an environment where I learned a lot about corporate America and a Fortune 100 company. I also received my master's in public administration while I was there, as well as a black belt in Lean Six Sigma, which is not related to karate. What it is it's a technique that's used by the production arena to see how you can be more effective and more efficient in your operation. And so with that, I was able to help save Geico millions of dollars. As a matter of fact, I was a part of the team. That helped design the 15-minute or less quote for Geico. And so I'm sure you've seen that on TV. You've heard rappers talk about it where they say 15 minutes or less to save 15% or more. And we simply just put all of the components that we needed in a call to help someone get an insurance quote. We put that toward the front of the call versus, getting irrelevant information. And that allowed us to help render an insurance quote in 15 minutes. Well, while working there, I also took on a part-time job as the Director of Recreation for Wilkeston County, where I helped design the first recreation department for the county. And I left there after being there right at 5 years, and I took a job with the city of Atlanta under Mayor Shirley Franklin. And there I managed the water department. Any of you guys ever been to Atlanta? I know most of you probably have, and you know it's a huge place with a lot of people. Well, have you ever thought about where all those people get their drinking water? Have you ever thought about what happened when all those millions of people flush their toilets at the same time? I know it's a gross thought, but somebody has to think about that. And so I was a part of the team that helped manage that operation to provide drinking water and to get rid of the wastewater and to look at stormwater. This was during the time in which dump trucks were falling in sinkholes on Peachtree Street because of deteriorating sewage systems and systems that had been neglected by previous leadership and was just falling apart throughout the city. And so after being there for a couple years, I decided that I wanted to do something a little different. I didn't know what direction I wanted to take. And I attended a presentation at the Embassy Suites with a friend of mine, and the speaker there was a patent attorney for Coca-Cola, and she was a black lady, and she had a mohawk, she had her own style, and she was in a very, very considerable position. And I wanted to know, I asked her, so how did you get to this point? Because I was reflecting on my own experience in corporate America. And she shared with me that I'm an attorney. I'm a patent attorney. And I have a certain skill that people want. And regardless of what I look like, regardless of what my hair looks like, regardless of who I love, regardless of what lifestyle I live, they will pay me for my unique skill. And so she taught me then to make yourself valuable, make yourself the person that's at the top of the shelf that everybody wants. You can't be that cliche individual that I can bring to you whatever everybody else bring. No, you want to be that person that can bring what no one else can bring. And so after that, I started studying for the LSAT. And at the age of 29, I decided to go to law school. I thought I was going to be old. I thought I was going to be the senior in the classroom. Well, no, the average age of my law school class was 38. So I was still on the young side of going to law school at that time. And so I decided to attend law school at Florida A&M University. I applied to 13 law schools, and I was accepted into 9. And that experience changed my life. I wanted to go to FAMU Law, one, because the law school was just opening up. FAMU had a law school back in the 50s. But after integration, Florida State wanted a law school, but the state of Florida had a policy that they could not have 2 graduate programs within 100 miles of each other. And those of you who've been to Tallahassee, Florida, you know that FAMU and Florida State is literally across the tracks from each other. Well, the state General Assembly in Florida closed down FAMU Law School and literally reopened it at Florida State Law School and said that Florida State would be a more inviting environment for all students. Well, unfortunately, it was 12 years before they accepted their first black law student after restarting their program. And Governor Jeb Bush the brother of former President George W. Bush and the son of previous President Bush, decided, in his words, he said, I wanted to right the racial wrong. So he recommissioned funds to reopen FAMU Law School, and through a bidding process, they reopened it in Orlando, Florida. Well, I went to Orlando, Florida. I went to law school with one concept in mind. I just wanted to be published. Well, my first year there, I ended up serving as my class representative. My second year there, I was the vice president of the law school student body, and my last year there, I was the president of the law school student body. I also served on the law review, and I was a part of many organizations. I clerked with a felony court judge in Orlando, Florida, that heard some very high-profile cases, like the Casey Anthony case. As a matter of fact, I wrote the motion to seal her records for that judge. I also had the opportunity to do a lot of other great things within the Orlando community. But part of probably my greatest accomplishment from law school was that I was elected to be the national president of all law students my last year in law school. That's 179,000 students. And I was in charge of a $2.5 million budget while still matriculating my last year in law school, while clerking with the judge, while serving on law review, and while being the student body president at my local law school. I was the fourth African-American in the 57-year history of that organization to do that, but I was the first one from an HBCU law school. And thanks to that position, I've traveled to all but 5 of the 50 states. I've given presentations to the General Assembly in New York. I've spoken to the Conference of Governors in California. I've dined with the Prime Minister of Australia, and I've been in the same room as the Queen of England celebrating the Magna Carta, which is the foundation of all of our law. So now I practice law as an attorney. Immediately graduating from law school, I went to work for a nonprofit, Georgia Appleseed Center for Law and Justice. And with that organization, we were able to work on issues that impact the marginalized in the state of Georgia's community. That's our elders. That's people of the minority status. We came in and helped Muskogee County, Bibb County, and Dougherty County work to try to reduce the number of out-of-school suspensions. We helped introduce PBIS on a wide scale to the school district system here in Muskogee County. We helped Muskogee County get a $2.5 million grant to help children with disabilities right here in our own county, right here in our own city. And when I left Georgia Appleseed, I ventured to open my own law practice. It was probably one of the scariest things I've ever done, just deciding that, okay, I'm going to go to absolutely no income to start a business. But as many of the great, amazing speakers before me, and there's certainly an all-star lineup of speakers on this panel, and I'm honored to be amongst them on this call. But as they have said to you, if you're not willing to take that risk, it's not going to happen. So I took that risk. I took that leap of faith. And my first year being in business with my own law firm, without a website, with just business cards, a telephone number, and an office at my house, my firm worked through over $1 million in business. And this is our second year, and right now we are on pace to hit somewhere around $3 million in business this year. I primarily work with civil litigation, so I don't do criminal law. You won't see me going in court fighting for someone who's charged with murder or any other crime. I don't do family law, no divorces, no guardianship, any of that nature. I do mainly catastrophic accidents, people that have died in car accidents. I have a case in Warner Robins, Georgia, that I recently settled a portion of it with the school district where a 6-year-old little girl died on a school bus. Well, we're still fighting it out right now with Bluebird because the door was faulty, and it caused the little girl to be ejected from the bus. I have a case I just settled a couple weeks ago in Valdosta where an older gentleman was driving to his son's barbershop to get a haircut, retired, and a lady came up behind him and hit him. These are not bad people, but accidents happen, and when they happen, the person that is harmed, they have the right to be indemnified, to be made whole from where they are. So imagine last week the honor I had driving to Valdosta, sitting down in front of my client, his spouse that's still here, and telling her that because of what we've been able to do, she would now have to not worry financially anymore in her life, that she is going to be just fine. And it was the look on her face and the tears of joy that she cried that makes what I do so amazing. But not only that, I certainly work hard to give back to the community too as well, because it was the community who helped make me. I didn't have the foundation to dream growing up in that little country area, running around barefoot, raised by a single mother, but my parents made sure that I had self-confidence. And one of my mentors told me a long time ago, there's a thin line between self-confidence and arrogance. And really that line is determined by the person who's looking at it. Yes, you want to be humble, and yes, you want to be appreciative and things of that nature, but if you do not believe in yourself, no one else will believe in you. And so I want to leave you guys with that. You got to believe in yourself. If you believe in yourself, you're capable and no one can stop you. All right, any questions at this time?
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Excuse me. Part of this announcement, students, be mindful that you can post all questions to our Remind group. Okay, sir. With that out the way, for my first question, what was the it factor of you choosing to be a doctor than to be a lawyer than a doctor? Because like there's if you want to be a doctor, you take the MCAT. If you want to be a lawyer, you take the LSAT, but you end up studying the same amount of work.
Yeah, that's a good question. I went to undergrad to be a doctor, and to be honest with you, I wanted to be a doctor from watching the Cosby Show. Bill Cosby had me. I literally wanted to be an OBGYN and deliver babies, but you know, as I stated earlier, biology and I didn't quite get along, so I had to think of another track. At that point in my life, I wasn't thinking about being an attorney, and it comes to show that at any moment, if you decide, you can reinvent yourself. You don't have to be held victim to your past. If you decide tomorrow that you want to take a new track in life, you can. And that's what I did at the age of 29. I said, okay, I want to be a lawyer. So it was at that point I started studying for the LSAT. You know, a lot of people think that your undergraduate degree determines whether or not you can be a lawyer. That's not true. You can go to law school with any bachelor's. You can have a bachelor's in English and go to law school. My bachelor's was in computer science. Some people major in pre-law, but it's not required. As a matter of fact, most law schools now convince you or encourages you to have a diverse background so that you can do more for your client, because you're going to learn everything you need to learn in law school. So the pre-law background is not necessarily any type of advantage. As a matter of fact, because I have this computer science background and we're such a technological society right now, it helps me with my cases more than you will ever imagine. Knowing how to go to social media and get evidence, knowing how to subpoena text messages and records of phone conversations and things of that nature, that has helped me prove a lot of my cases that an individual was distracted and on the phone, or here's the text evidence that we were looking for to show that they are guilty of what we're saying they're guilty for. So I wasn't juggling law school and being a doctor at the same time. The law school came later on in life after working in the corporate sector and the private and the public sector, working for Geico Corporate and the city of Atlanta.
Thank you so much, sir. My next question would be, tell us about your experience at Albany State and Florida A&M.
Wow. You know, that's a very good question, and I'm going to answer that this way. There are some segments of our society that have taught us or want us to believe that it's a bad thing to be pro-black. Just because you're pro-black doesn't mean you're anti-anything else. I love all people, but however, my HBCU education has taught me the true plight of African Americans in our country, and so much that has held us back. And there's no group that has been impacted more than anybody than black women. Black women has been impacted more than black men. And so when you learn that, you learn the history of who you are, and you take a sense of pride on how your people was able to rise from the fields and blossom to be great contributors to society, to where we have black men now doing some of the most amazing things, like one you just talked to on the phone who has won a national championship with a football team. A football team that many years ago, if you were a minority, your grandparents or great-great-grandparents could not attend. That just shows you how far we have advanced. You know, to having our first black president, to having black senators and elected representatives and people working in our community to provide services that we traditionally were not able to provide. You know, if you look at the history of HBCUs like Albany State and FAMU, you look at the fact that many of these schools were originally founded to do a particular task in the black community. Like Albany State was created at first to train teachers, to train black educators to go out and help educate the newer generation. Well, I think when you see folks like myself, what you see is you see the benefit of those initial efforts to first, let's bring in teachers, let's bring in black teachers to teach our black kids and help them understand from a cultural perspective, and teach all kids really, but particularly make sure our black kids understand from a cultural perspective that they can be great. It was instilling confidence at the grade level, and now we've taken it to the next level where you see more black attorneys like myself and Willie Gary and some of the greatest, Forrest V. Johnson, that are out here, you know, winning $1 million cases. That was unheard of prior to. So the HBCU, for me, one, it instilled a greater confidence, especially of a little country boy coming from an economically deprived area where my high school education, though it was the best it could be, it was not on par to make me competitive with the rest of the world. But going to that HBCU, they taught me, I'll never forget things like ASU by candlelight, where they taught me how to sit down for a formal dinner and where the fork should be and where the knife should be and what plate I should start with first and how I should take signals from everyone else around the table. Like, you wait till everyone receives a plate before you start eating. You don't just get your plate and dive right in. It was things like that that they helped taught me. And so there's certainly a place for HBCUs in our community, especially like Albany State and FAMU. And we got to make sure we continue to support them and let our students know that there's an opportunity for any student, whether you're black, white, Latino, it doesn't matter. You can attend an HBCU as well. It's a great educational experience.
Thank you so much, sir. My next question would be, as a successful college-educated African-American male, what is your deepest fear?
My deepest fear? My deepest fear lately has been that the generations coming up will not realize the opportunities that they have for them, and they will waste those opportunities. You know, the life that I'm living now is because of the leaders 20 and 30 years ago that helped build the society that I live in today. Well, today is my responsibility to make sure that folks in your generation, young man, have an opportunity to be greater than me. If we're not advancing the next generation, then what are we doing? If we're not passing the baton saying, look, I have run my race, now it's time for me to give it to someone else so that they can continue to run this race for us as well. At the end of the day, it's greater than us as individuals. It's greater than us. This story that we are living, this book that we are part of, is greater than us as individuals. It's about us collectively creating a story of success and advancement. America is what she is because of so many contributions from so many amazing races and individuals that came together to fight for this country, to make us who we are today. And all of us have that role to play. So considering that we have that role to play, we have to make sure that we are out there constantly conveying to our young folks that you have what it takes to be great, that you can take anything you want to the next level. And it's my fear that so much that influence our young people today has been so commercialized, like rap music, like TV, like video games and everything else, that it's taken away the ability of the community to guide and mold and culture our own people. And we're losing that battle. So what I want my greatest fear is that folks in our younger generation will not see the fact that those actions by those people are being taken because they're paid to do so. That's not reality. Reality is you got to get out there and you got to work hard and you got to put a little elbow grease on it, as my great uncle would tell me when I was out there holding that ply in that field trying to get those tomato plants in the ground. You got to put a little elbow grease in it, and you got to work hard to get it done because nothing is going to be handed to you. So that's my fear right now. That's why I work so hard to try to convey to our young folks that opportunity exists and you can take it if you choose to, but it's totally up to you. No one's not going to do it for you. I've seen too many young folks stand before a judge and try to tell a judge, well, I didn't have a daddy in my life, or I didn't have a new pair of shoes growing up, or there were days I was at home when our water was cut off, or we didn't have anything to eat. Well, guess what? That judge is not going to sympathize for you or to you after you've committed armed robbery or after you've taken somebody else's life. Those factors become irrelevant. So whether they may be harmful and hurtful to you as an individual, you have to understand the way that the rest of society is going to look at things. And that's the hard reality of it. And I fear that too many of our young folks are not understanding the hard reality. I hope that answers your question.
Okay, so my next question would be, as an attorney, what is your perspective on the racial and ethnic gaps with the prison population? With your profession, how are you able to impact this gap on a local level?
Well, I think it's no secret that if you look at the ratio of African American males in prison, that it certainly conveys to you that something seems not to be right. Part of the challenges with our jury system, you know, I hear it too often where people will say on social media and or in other avenues, oh man, I got jury duty again. Well, jury duty needs to be looked at as part of your civic responsibility, just like voting. Constitutionally, everyone has a right to a jury of their peers. If you don't have people that look like you judging you, then that's going to be problematic, because one thing is absolutely clear. No matter how much the judge get up there and says, make sure that you leave your personal bias out the door, that's hard for people to do. And folks will walk into that courtroom with how they feel about folks. And they will use how they feel about people, regardless of that individual, just generally, how they feel about people. And that will be what drives their decision when it comes to that jury decision. So I'm not saying that our criminal justice system is perfect, but we do have one of the best criminal justice systems in the world. If you knew half of what happens in some of these other countries, in some countries you are guilty until you prove yourself that you are innocent. In our country, the system is premised on you are innocent until proven guilty. It has to be proven in criminal cases beyond a reasonable doubt, and in civil cases beyond the preponderance of the evidence that you have committed the acts that people are saying that you have committed. Now here locally, one way that we can certainly help that is making sure that we are keeping a pipeline of minority lawyers coming into the community. You know, and that's not just from a criminal perspective, that's even from a civil perspective. The African American community is one of the most underserved legal portions of our society today. As a matter of fact, there are 6 counties here in Georgia that do not have an attorney that lives there and practices there. And Chattahoochee County is one of them, a county just south of us. So when we think about about Columbus, I know right now as students, you're in your Spencer world, you in your Columbus world. But when you're talking to an individual like me, I think regionally, because I know what happens around our perimeter. As you heard DJ Jones say, the Chattahoochee Valley, what happens in the Chattahoochee Valley ultimately impacts us here in Columbus as well. And to know that we have a county right here beside us with no attorney at all, that's disturbing. Who's looking out for people's constitutional rights? Who's looking out for their individual human and basic human rights? That should be disturbing to a lot of people, especially as you see people in rural areas of the state across this country, black folks that have owned land since sharecropping days, when they bought it from the masters, when they were received from slaves, have been in families for years. They're losing that property because some of the family members that have moved up north are selling their share of the property, which is just a small share. But once you get to a certain percentage of ownership, then you can go to court and require the court to do a forced sale. And when the court do a forced sale, they do the forced, I'm saying forced, F-O-R-C-E-D. They do the forced sale on the steps of the courthouse. And from that point there, whoever the highest bidder is, now they own the entire plot. And in Louisiana and in South Carolina, we're seeing African Americans lose land by the hundreds of the acres because they can't keep up with this. So when you have people in your culture, whether you're Latino, African American, Asian, whatever it may be, that understand the ins and outs of the legal society, then they help your people fight more, because your folks will be more trusting of you than they will anybody else. And I'm not saying that's the way it should be. What I'm saying is that's just the way it is. That's just the way it is. So we have to meet our people where they are. I didn't realize so many challenges that we have from a societal and legal perspective until I became an attorney, and until I started working with the Diversity and Inclusion Committee, and we started talking and discovering, and this committee would be black, white, Latino, Asian. It would be all folks, because you do have a foundation of people out there in society that want just basic fairness for everyone. They don't like people being taken advantage of. If you want someone's land, you pay them the fair market value for it. Don't go take it through a court loophole. People don't like that. And those are the same folks that fought with Dr. Martin Luther King and the civil rights movers marching through Mississippi and Alabama and Georgia and other states. There were people of all races. That's why you will never hear me say things like, "Oh, the man is holding us down," or these folks always doing this and these folks always doing that, because you have good people in every race. And it's incumbent upon the good people to come together and to fight together and say this wrong that is happening to this particular group, it must stop. And the greatest example of that in our history is the Civil War. There were so many white people from the North that fought that war so that black people come out of slavery. You read about this. You guys read about this in school. You know this story. You probably never heard the emphasis this way, but it's the truth. It's the truth. So again, to me, that's the American spirit. That's the highest level of patriotism, when we all can come together as Americans, regardless of our skin color, regardless of where we were born, regardless of how much money is in our bank account, and say we just simply want what's right for people. We want everybody to have the fair opportunity to be successful and to live a prosperous life. To answer your question?
Yes, sir. I totally agree. And my last question would be, what does it take to build and sustain your own practice and your own legacy?
What does it take? It takes a little determination. It takes a little confidence. It takes a little self-will. And it takes a little not being afraid to get a little dirty and sweaty. And what I mean by that is putting the work in. Sharon Riley would say, put some work on it. I don't know if y'all know Sharon Riley or not, but he's another guy in the community that I work with quite often to help improve things, especially for our African American males, and trying to stop, so many of the murders that we see on TV and the crime that we see in our community. if you're going to be successful, it is truly totally up to you and what you feel your level of success is. I used to have a quote that I live by and I first come across this quote when I was in undergraduate school at Albany State University, and it stated that the success that you seek is right outside of your own comfort zone. Are you willing to step outside of your comfort zone? There are plenty of times that I stepped outside of my comfort zone. When I ran for student body president at Albany State, I was stepping outside of my comfort zone. When I left Geico to go work for the city of Atlanta, and Geico was paying me pretty good, I stepped outside of my comfort zone. When I left the city of Atlanta to go to law school, I stepped outside of my comfort zone. When I moved to Columbus, Georgia, where I didn't have not one relative, didn't know nobody here, and had only been here for the Fountain City Classic, I stepped outside of my comfort zone. But every time I've stepped outside of my comfort zone, I've seen a higher level of success because I wasn't afraid to do what I felt was right. And that's one thing my grandmother always instilled in me is you got to do what you feel is right. We didn't have much, but you know what? My grandmother always kept us biscuit and a piece of sausage on the stove for any child that came through the neighborhood and that was hungry. And she knew every day at least 2 or 3 children were going to come through there and say, Miss Carrie Lou, do you have something I can eat? Because their parents didn't have the money and didn't have the resources to feed them. You know, so when I started my law firm, I didn't go broke trying to some big building with pretty glass walls and downtown on Broadway. No, I did what I could. I said, you know what, I'm going to start my law firm right here in my home office that I have at my house. I got my business license. I got my business cards printed up. I started putting the fillers out, and the next thing I know, I was busy. I've been so busy, I still haven't had time to build a website. Been so busy, I haven't had time to film a commercial. Haven't had time to pull up a billboard. Because I chose to be successful. Success should be what you want it to be, not what society or anybody else thinks that your success should look like. Let them determine their success. But you need to determine your own success. And if you are not in the mindset of determining your own success, I would tell you, you are already on a path to failure. Because only you should determine whether or not you have been successful. Don't let nobody else set measurements for you. You set your own goals. Make sure they are obtainable goals. Make sure they are reachable goals. And when you reach those individual goals, you celebrate at those individual levels. But don't stop there. You got to keep going. You got to press on forward. You got to take it a little bit further. You got to get up the next morning. Sometimes, you know, when I settle these big cases and I get these big checks, I want to lay in bed the next day. I said, nope, let me get on up, get on downstairs. I get dressed. I put on a full suit just to go sit in the office in my own house because I'm determined to be successful. I don't advertise what I'm making. I don't advertise what I'm bringing in. You know, I'm appreciative of my wife who supported me through my struggle. My wife is a doctor. She practices medicine with Piedmont Columbus Regional right here in Columbus, and we have a 3-year-old daughter. But it was a team effort. Without her, I could not have done it because she helped me and she helped our family while I was trying to get my firm moving along. And we had a family plan. My business wasn't just a Teddy Reese plan. It was a family plan. My wife knew what was going to be happening during this time. We knew the financial pinch we were going to be in until my firm started making money. But we sacrificed, and we did it. And since God has blessed us so much, we've been a blessing to the community. I've been over to Spencer quite a bit. Ms. Patterson will tell you, I love coming over there. I love working with the students there. When Carver High School basketball boys and girls won a state championship, my wife and I helped sponsor some of the rings. Because it's important that we let our young people know that there are people out there watching you, rooting for you, and we want you to be successful. And every student on this call, you need to know that as well. There are people here in this city, regardless of what you may read on social media, regardless of how some people may look at you when you see them at the store and out in other places, there are people in this city that are fighting every day for the opportunity for you to be successful. And we're not going to stop. No matter how much pushback we receive, no matter how much folks want to hold us back, no matter what people may say, no matter how people may try to treat us, we are going to continue to fight for you because we know that's our job now. Because there was one point when we were your age that there were people out there fighting for us. That answer your question, sir?
Hampton Special High School. Someday to meet you in person. Thank you for being with us today on our virtual think tank. At this time, I would like to pass the mic to our final speaker, Mrs. Beck from Maryland. Thank you so much, sir.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Rosa Patterson, Miss Patterson, for that invitation to come speak to Georgia. I am excited, calling in from Maryland today, Frederick, Maryland, to be exact. I want to thank all of the callers ahead of me. I have definitely been empowered and motivated. As a former teacher, I have to share the teachable moments. Caller number one, examples, and examples come from role models, but also sometimes from our non-examples. Thank you for that intestinal fortitude quote. That's the courage and endurance to go on. Caller number two said, don't settle. Opportunities are in every situation. Every negative situation, there's an opportunity. I call it a mess inside of a blessing. A blessing turned into a mess, Caller number three, make yourself valuable. Confidence versus arrogance is a thin line determined by the person looking at it, and encouraging you to look at collectively creating stories, unity, community guidance, and that is what I'm all about. And so how fitting is it for me to bring up the rear like I would at Howard University and the Showtime Marching Band along with Miss Patterson. I am Janine Beck. I am a mother. I am a daughter. I am a child of God. I am a wife. I am an educator. I am an administrator, and I thank God that I'm here today, healthy and able to speak to you. And so my advice is care over content. I want to thank all the mentors who have been joining in to mentor and encourage these students here. I think mentoring is definitely why I have been and continue to be successful in life, because you're never too old and never know enough to have mentors in your life. And so I'm always connecting with others in order to learn and grow. And so I have just recently started a vision that I've had for a long time to continue to carry the torch and give back. J Cares Foundation, cares being caring, achieving, restoring, empowering, and supporting in our youth. And so we have an achievement gap here in Frederick County, Maryland, where I'm trying to work and support our community because I live and also work in the Frederick community. And so raising 5 children now as a result of my recent marriage to my husband, 25 years military. It's been an interesting journey, and I love him and appreciate him for all of his support. My children grew up with a parent who was an administrator for years and sometimes not present. I was in a single parent growing up, and I was a single mom working hard. And so I kudos to my senior in high school right now, who's class of 2020. You are the visionary leaders, pun intended. Visionary leadership is what we need from you. But I just want to thank all of the support, the mentors over my life who have poured into me, whether it's time, talent, education, support, motivation, just like we're doing today. I just really thank you for this opportunity, and Miss Patterson for your leadership in Georgia. I was born in Philadelphia. Shout out to the Eagles. I am a fan, of course. Go Birds. I am a lifelong learner. I'm always seeking to learn from people who know more than me, who've been places that I haven't been, or who can help guide me. But I'm also a teacher and a motivator of others. And so I pride myself on surrounding myself with positive people. And from the early age of 2, I can remember how important learning was. I learned Suzuki violin at the age of 2 or 3 years old. I was pretty young. And so my mother instilled in me confidence and discipline at an early age through early childhood instruction. And I really appreciate education and have had a passion for learning, and I'm still in school working on my doctorate at George Washington. I am a graduate 2 times over from Howard University. I majored in biology. Like the caller ahead of me, I also sought being a pediatrician as my goal, and it probably was from the Cosby Show as well. And so thinking about my journey, I'm thinking about Ivy Leaf private school. I'm thinking about Sister Clara Muhammad. Yes, I was in Islam for a moment before finding my faith back into Christianity. I'm thinking about Shawmont Elementary Middle Magnet School, and all of the opportunities that I was able to get and was afforded through my mom's opportunity vision of making sure that she had me bust to the neighborhood beyond mine to get the opportunities. Keyword, people. Opportunities. You want to seek and provide opportunities for yourself, even when they're not given to you. And so next I went to the Philadelphia High School for Girls. I ran track. That's an opportunity. I was in the band. That's an opportunity. I was in the orchestra. That's an opportunity. I was on the executive council, which was a first leadership opportunity that I've ever had. And that was kind of like a SGA kind of thing at Girls High. And so not only did that give me a leadership opportunity, but that got me on the first row at graduation. Anyway, I was known as the Neon Queen because, like one of the callers said earlier, self-confidence is important, and it's not arrogance, but you have to be confident. You have to believe in yourself. And so my high school classmates probably remember me as Janine, the Neon Queen, because I rocked those, those bright colors all the time with confidence. I walked in the building one day with K-Swiss, one red and one black, because for me, it was about spirit and joy and life and energy and motivation. And so, there are always going to be hard times in life, but you have to make the peace, and you have to find your peace from whatever it is that's going to make you empowered, and how you need to then turn and empower others. So at the age of 16, I landed at Howard University, graduating 3.4, I guess, from Philadelphia High School for Girls, a biology major. Actually, no, I was a music major at first because my mother was like, we need some money for school. So we found some money through Howard University, and I was a music major for the first semester. And by that end of the first semester, I had a 4.0 and a Dean Scholarship, and I made my way over into the biology program. And the journey continued there with biology. And so for 4.5 years, I was a biology major, transitioned immediately from an undergrad in biology to a master's degree, which was paid for based on my determination, dedication, and perseverance to continue and to be successful. And so Howard University paid for my graduate career. I was going to go to medical school. However, SATs and test taking is just not my thing, along with maybe being a little too social. And so my study routine, where I probably could have made really good SAT scores, I just did not. And so I continued to learn and earn a degree in biology, where I was a biology major, and I became a teaching assistant. And that kind of inspired me to love education even more. And I appreciated those motivated, spirited students who always gave me a run for my money, or who entertained the entire class when it wasn't like talent show time. You know what I'm talking about. That might be you. Maybe it's not. It was my brother sometimes. That wasn't ever me. I was a great student. But anyway, I think that it is important for you to set goals. I think it is important for you to surround yourself with positive people. I was involved in the Civil Air Patrol mainly because my mother thought discipline was important, which I agree with. And so we were in Civil Air Patrol. I was in ballet. Being a dark-skinned young lady, sometimes I've heard, you're pretty cute for a dark-skinned girl. Well, yes, I'm really cute. And so confidence is something that you have to have for yourself, or you need to surround yourself with someone who's going to empower you. And so my confidence that I have now did not come overnight. It came out of experiences. I was in the Girl Scouts. I was in the YMCA. I was in a program called African American Foundation for Negro Affairs, where on weekends during the summer, or weeknights, I was getting mentored by lawyers, like we heard earlier, or doctors that were looking like me, of my same skin color, which inspired me to say, yes, despite the fact that everybody who's teaching me right now, for the most part, do not look like me, I still can be somebody, and I will be somebody. So, but besides that, I think my faith in God and my perseverance and my cheerleader, which was my mother and still is something that has made me to be successful in life. And so being a music major, being a biology major, I was pretty book smart, not the best test taker. a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated at Howard University, a member of the Howard University Showtime Marching Band playing the saxophone. Opportunity. I was a teacher for some years, and actually my first teaching gig was at Ann Beers Elementary as a long-term substitute. And I could not believe that first graders had attitudes. Wow. Now living with a 6-year-old and 2 of them sometimes when my stepchildren come over, I totally get it. But before that, it was still something that drew me. I love serving. And so part of being wanting to be a doctor originally came from my servant kind of leadership passion and always wanting to help others. So how fitting was it for my first principal, Dr. Daka, who ended up being a board member, to see my care, my heart. So care over content, passionate leadership, servant leadership, able to care and see and observe others and see where you can support and motivate and continue to know that you're not a know-it-all and you have to continue to pour on your own professional learning and learn for yourself as well. I had an opportunity provided without any kind of professional teaching experience to serve at Argyle Middle School in Silver Spring. And what an experience that was. And so from there, I went to Paint Branch High School, where I sought an opportunity to be a science department chair, but I guess I was too young, or maybe I didn't have the experiences. Looking back at it at hindsight, I think they wanted skill over content or over heart. And so, the opportunities will come and you will have some no's, but you will also have some yeses and some amens. So just hang in there. I went from Paint Branch High School to Brogden Middle School because my principal, bless her heart, she was good at leadership, but caring, I feel like I needed a little bit more caring. And so I tried to go down south. I went to North Carolina. I wanted to try the cost of living as well. And I worked in Brogden Middle School for a couple of years. They were great. Technology was great down there. The culture and the climate and supportiveness was amazing within the school in the neighborhood that I was living in Durham, North Carolina. Then I came back because the cost of living in the unions, it just wasn't there for me. I was a single mom. And so I was trying to make sure I was able to provide an opportunity and outlets for my own child at the time. And so I came back to Maryland and was offered a leadership opportunity at Roberto Clemente Middle School, which was an amazing opportunity surrounded by amazing leaders and an amazing principal who was a building capacity of others kind of a leader. And so that was where I learned the power of collaboration and giving back really, and teamwork. Then I went over to become what they call in Montgomery County, an assistant school administrator. It's kind of like the test. Maybe she can be an administrator, maybe she can't, kind of a thing. So it's a great opportunity that the school district had to allow people who didn't have the experience to gain their foot in the door as an administrator. So I was an assistant school administrator, which was great because I had my summers off, but I wasn't officially an administrator yet. The following year, I worked hard that year and I became an assistant principal. And then I have served as assistant principal in probably about 4 schools before earning the opportunity in Frederick County to be a principal. And as a principal, I learned from all of my examples and sometimes non-examples from some of the leaders that I worked from, how to be restorative. And so J-Cares is birthed out of the assumption that I think that everyone should be restorative in life. And so I was a principal for 3 years in Frederick County Public Schools. And now I am in central office as the achievement specialist for school culture, which I feel like has been another blessing and an opportunity where I kind of train the entire county on restorative practices and the power of community building and the power of repairing and restoring relationships when we have conflict. And what school, family, organization is without conflict? Absolutely none. And so how important it is for me to be in that place in central office to have the opportunity to support and to be aligned with my superintendent's vision of closing the achievement gap. And so I am taking all of the life lessons, the examples, the non-examples, and my servant leadership skills to central office, where I continue to do things like building community, collaborating with others. As a principal, I will share that I was a one who believed on connections and community. So I did things like what we're doing today on this call. I had a Girls with Pearls, a Guys with Ties mentoring program. I had diversity night, just anything I could do to be inclusive, because we recognize that, we all have different backgrounds, but we all have talents that should be recognized, applauded, and celebrated. And so that's one thing that I love to do as an administrator, no matter where I am, and as a parent, and as a family member. And so setbacks was one of the questions that I was asked to kind of respond to. And I go with the word distractions. And I'm going to break the distractions down with words. Okay. So some of the distractions, without giving you personal examples, I'm going to give you words that come to mind that have been distractions in my life, using the word distractions to break it down. So doubt has been something in my life that I have battled with, but I turned that doubt into dare. We're going to dare. Okay. We're going to dare to be different. We're going to dare to do what we think is right all the time. Insecurities. We all have them, but we're going to turn them into security blankets. We're going to wrap around us the people that we need to get away from those insecurities to be successful. Secrets. Sometimes you're afraid to share things with others, but I want to turn those secrets into sharing opportunities. That's the S. T. Tired. Sometimes we're tired. We're going to turn that tired into training moments. Think about the military. Think about whatever it is that you need to do to go from being tired to getting to a mindset of training. Rage, the R. Sometimes we get upset because obstacles may confront us. We get upset because people may challenge our positive energy. People may be intimidated. And sometimes we have rage, but we are going to be restorative in those moments. Think about relationships. Think about perceptions and change that rage into a restorative moment. Acceptance, avenues to shine. Sometimes we want to be accepted by everything and everyone, but sometimes that's just not going to happen. But consider it an avenue to shine. Do you, as we said in the Howard University Marching Band, do it. Do you, okay? You got this. Character is all about community building. Sometimes we'll have characters in our life, and sometimes we might be a character that defeats our own self. And so think about and observe the characters of others, because there's nothing more important than your character. And make sure the community members in your community have good character and strive to be like them. Teasing has been something that has, been something that has affected me in my life. And so turn that teasing into a testimony, people. Preach, teach, and move on. Isolation. Sometimes you have to work, like caller number 1 said, by yourself, about yourself. And maybe you have to motivate yourself because there's no one else in your household that can do it for you. So you need to keep that, quote, intestinal fortitude, which I have to look up and see what it really broke down to. Courage and endurance to go on, people. Stay with me. Opposition is always going to come in your life, but we're going to turn that into what? Observations. Look at it. What is it really trying to teach you? Maybe it is a learning. Maybe there is a teachable moment for you, and you're going to observe it and keep it moving. Never. Sometimes you hear, well, you're never going to amount to this. You're never going to amount to that. Well, guess what? I am not going to be a never I can't use the word never. I'm going to be the what? Next. Okay. I will be the next. The one that you said I would never be, I will be the next. Keep that mindset. Strongholds is the last S in the word distractions. I hope I spelled it correctly. But anyway, personal weaknesses. Those are what strongholds are. We all have them. Nobody's perfect, but we're going to turn those into strength finders. So forget about the strongholds, the things that are holding you down, and find your strength. I'm going to leave you with some quotes from my role model, Michelle Obama, Dr. Michelle Obama, First Lady, former First Lady. Always stay true to yourself and never let somebody else distract you from your goals. You heard it. Quote number 2, instead of letting your hardships and failure discourage or exhaust you, let them inspire you. Quote number 3, through my education, I didn't just develop skills. I didn't just develop their ability to learn, but I developed the ability to learn self and develop confidence. So class of 2020 and everyone else listening, you are visionary leaders, pun intended, and I dare you to lead on this journey. As a principal, I had the motto leadership, empathy, achievement, and determination. But today I'm going to leave you with lead in a different way. Learn, empower, action plan, and dream big. Thank you, Rosa Patterson, for this opportunity. Miss Patterson, any questions from me?
Thank you so much, ma'am. My first question would be, you said you went to college at the age of 16. How did it feel to be the youngest student in your freshman class?
It definitely was a bit intimidating and scary, but I think my mom instilled in me a spirit of kind of fear of nothing but God. And so for me, I managed it just by having faith that I can do anything.
Yes, ma'am. My next question would be, you said that you have a 2020 graduate in your home. How is he or she adjusted to COVID-19?
So my daughter, she is a senior. She is going to the other HU, Hampton University, in the fall. So, despite the fact that she is not having a prom and she is not having graduation at this point, as far as we know, we're hoping that something is going to virtually occur. She's managing, she's here with me every day. That's the beauty of all this. I think I get more time with her. We're improving our relationship. I've interviewed her. I check on her. I try to motivate her to be a community builder. She's working on her community service efforts. And she's coping. She has a good friend group, and I think she's going to be okay. But obviously there's a lot of disappointment there, to be honest.
Thank you so much. Okay, how do you serve students of international culture?
And so as a principal, one of the things that I prided myself on is inclusiveness and ensuring that we have opportunities to serve all. And so one of the programs that I implemented and they still have going is Diversity Night. And that was an opportunity for, all cultures to come together to share their special and uniqueness. And so that was well attended. And I believe it's still going on after checking the website of my old school. And also as a restorative practitioner, community circles is something that we do. And so one of the things that I want to do now and that I still do when I train other administrators or counselors in the county is to be inclusive. And that means, creating opportunities for all to tell their voice. And so I definitely agree with the caller ahead of us who said, no matter the race, you have to have everyone's opinion, and bringing everyone to the table really makes, success for all.
Okay, thank you. From a teacher, what are your thoughts on school reform, especially in economic disadvantaged schools?
Excellent. And so the research that I'm doing, as I said, I'm working, I don't know if I shared that or not, but I'm working on my doctorate at George Washington University, and I am looking at restorative practices. And so in terms of reform, school reform, there have been a lot of policies and laws related to the disproportionality and the sense of urgency needed to, across the country, make some laws and policies and practices to ensure that all districts are looking at the international aspects, the equity, and the meeting the needs of all learners. And so how, what an opportunity, I guess I would say, that I have to make an impact on that now, being one who is in my district leading with restorative practices, which I feel is a new school reform that is looking at, building community, allowing equity of a voice, engaging all stakeholders, looking at, the different practitioner styles and understanding the needs, using a trauma-informed lens, understanding that all of our students and even our staff members in front of the students come from different backgrounds, and that we need to care over content, take care of, what people are feeling and dealing with before we can teach them. They don't care how much you know until they know how much you care, and equally, we can't really assist until we really know our students. And so implementation of policies and practices and school-wide initiatives like PBIS or restorative practices allow staff members and all stakeholders to get to know each other on a level that they need to understand their students before they can teach their students.
Thank you so much. My next question will be, you mentioned the phrase restorative practices. What is that and how does that concept change schools?
All right. And so there's a lot of research associated with restorative practices in connection to restorative justice in general, and the idea that we need to look at school communities as communities, basically, and organizations. And the overall aim, as I mentioned, is, building community, but also managing conflict when it occurs. And conflict can be in the form of, a suspension. And we know that there's plenty of data, prison and pipeline research that, suspending a child does not teach them anything. It doesn't help them. And there are some situations where, that is one consequence that needs to be used, given that, some consequences, some infractions, could end up being something that the law has to get involved in. But for the most part, a lot of the infractions that we deal with in the school community are surrounded by non-discretionary offenses like disrespect, and that's, perception based. And so we need to really work with school teams to understand and review data and make sure that we're teaching expectations prior to disciplining for expectations without having appropriate, practices in place in our own school environment to ensure that everyone is clear on expectations. So restorative practices is all about the fair process and engaging communication of high expectations combined with high support. And so it's one thing to say, I'm going to hold you accountable and I'm expecting you to do this, but how are you going to support and make sure that we have tools in place to ensure that they are able to reach those high expectations? So a lot of people have the misnomer that restorative practice is all about, the soft, caring, mushy kind of stuff, but it really is, high support, high structure, high control, high support. We want you to maintain our control in our environment, but we want to also be supportive, and every support for every person, from a staff member to a student, is going to look differently. And so it's working with schools, communities, parents, staff members, and student, each one of them, empowering them to have a voice, to have ownership, to be a stakeholder, a contributing active stakeholder in their community in order to make change in that school culture.
Thank you so much, ma'am. My last question will be, at the end of the day, how would you describe success, and do you think you reached that goal?
Yeah, I think that overall, yes, I have reached a level of success, and I think success comes in stages, and you can be in control of what you perceive that to be, and others can determine what they perceive your level of success. Have I achieved a level of success? Yes, because I have graduated from high school, college twice, and am working on a degree. I've served as principal, but have I achieved a level of success that I envision for me? No, I have opportunities that I still plan to take on. I have things that I still want to complete before my career is over and I retire. And so I think success is determined by, you and how you feel, and sometimes what you have done in life. And so I have been successful and I have reached a level of success, but my hill is high and my goals are large and I dream big. And so I have other things that I need to do to define success. And so I think success can be defined by you and by others. And to me, I have achieved success, but I have a lot more to do to continue being successful.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Well, my last question today was empowering and inspiring. As the final guest, you get to share any final thoughts or words of inspiration with our virtual think tank.
All right. Well, I actually think that we need to do some homework as a community, as a country, together strong. And so I want us to all create an action plan. I'm going to give you some homework, set some goals, You know, your goal for last week might be different than it is for this week. So set a goal. We're in a time where we are all on pause. And so as we are in pause, you know, shout out your praises, your affirmations, but set a goal. Create an affirmation or select one, maybe from a role model. So you heard a few today from all of the callers. Maybe it was a quote. Maybe it was a person that they were inspired by. You know, find an affirmation that's going to motivate you in your down times. And maybe it's a song. For me, I absolutely love music. So on a day where I might feel like crying, you might find me smiling because I have played some kind of inspirational. Poetry is another way that we can find inspiration. And there's a poem, that the Brothers of Omega Psi use to motivate themselves. There's poetry and there's music and there's affirmations. If you can't create one, find one and have that on your wall. Find that and have it somewhere. But set a goal, create or select an affirmation and lead. Learn all you can learn. Empower yourself and others. Be action oriented, have an action plan, and dream big.
Okay, thank you so much, ma'am, for your time. Teachers, students, and guests, I have truly enjoyed today's virtual think tank. I feel motivated from your words of wisdom. Thank you for joining us. Continue to be safe and join us for our next session this Thursday at noon. My name is John Taylor George, and I thank you for joining us. Have a great day.